Penn State said the goal was to win national titles with this coaching hire, but the latest leading candidate doesn't get you closer to that.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host. Welcome into another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. This is a crossover episode we do this weekly, myself and Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers, where we look across the Big Ten, the latest headlines, starting with Penn State's coaching search and an intriguing leading candidate, and why that candidate does not get Penn State closer to that national title threshold. Did Penn State expose Indiana? Are they fraudulent? Because maybe the Hoosiers shouldn't have went down to the wire with the Nittany Lions like that. We're also going to make our Week 12 picks for the Big Ten Conference, and I'll tell you what, we've been pretty sharp all season long, so stay tuned for those. So now, enjoy this crossover episode to discuss the latest Big Ten headlines with Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers, beginning with Penn State's coaching search.
As Penn State continues to look for its next head coach, Zach, you told me there may be someone now in the lead, a name that we floated around, but someone who has surged to the top. What can you tell us about Eli Drinkwitz? That's right, the Missouri head coach who might just be the next head man in Happy Valley. Is that what you want? Is that what the fans want? I mean, give me the overall feelings about Eli Drinkwitz possibly being the guy there at Happy Valley.
So he's a good coach, but I've said this before, and I'll relay it here. He's not Penn State's best option. He might be Penn State's most realistic option, but that doesn't mean that he's the best. When I look at it this way, again, I had a source. Again, this is where things stand, and this is such a fluid situation. Yeah. But as Missouri starts to, they seem all but out of the college football playoff race. Yeah. The guys that Penn State was targeting and were swinging for the fences for, Mike Elko and Kalen DeBoer, those guys are going to be in a college football playoff race. You're going to have to wait all the way till January. Are you willing to do that? And are you willing to do that to go into a bidding war with both Alabama and Texas A&M? Or the fact that they just might say no at the end of the day. You might not even get into a bidding war. But the fact that there might be a no made for whatever reason, I don't know if Penn State wants to take that risk. I think I'm kind of okay with it with a Kalen DeBoer or a Mike Elko, given transfer portal. Hey, the coach leaves, everybody will follow, or most people. I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of players would follow. You could correct your issues through the transfer portal. With that being said, it seems like Penn State's not going to go in that direction, that you're going to go with a Drinkwitz. I would say that Jeff Brohm is still there. Alex Golish of South Florida. Yep. Alex Golish of South Florida. Brian Hartline, still someone in the mix. But again, he's going to be in the playoffs. So again, do you want to wait for him? And he's not a head coach. So then he doesn't open up the transfer portal by joining a different team. Because that's the head coach triggers that transfer portal window when they leave for another program. Right. Yeah. So the college football playoff complicates a lot of things along with this timeline. So Penn State knows that. Here's the thing with Drinkwitz, though. My preference, given the most realistic options, obviously I want Elko. I've said that a dozen times. Everybody knows that.
Since the beginning. Yep, that's right.
But then you might as well go with Jeff Brohm, because if this hire was framed as, well, we want to win national titles. We made this move because we think we're a national title contender year in and year out. Does Eli Drinkwitz do that for Penn State? No, I don't think he does. And I don't think so. I've compared him to James Franklin, where in regard to you go to a middling SEC program, a team they're not a powerhouse in the SEC, but you build them up for a few years. James Franklin did that at Vanderbilt. Drinkwitz has done that at Missouri, but he's not winning big games. And at least Franklin had connections because he's from Pennsylvania. At least he's a Pennsylvania guy. Drinkwitz doesn't have any connections in the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic. He's an Oklahoma guy. He spent most of his time in the Southeast as a head coach. So this hire potentially, again, I'm not saying it's a done deal. I just know that my source told me that this is your leading candidate and it is likelier to happen I would go with Jeff Brohm if it's between the two of them, because then you get a guy that knows how to win big games. And that's something Penn State hasn't had for a decade plus. James Franklin could never win the big game. You kind of have that same situation with Drinkwitz. Brohm can. He was 3-1 against top 5 teams at Purdue. Go with Brohm because he gives you something different. I don't know that Drinkwitz gives you something that drastically different.
Well, I look at Eli Drinkwitz, and I've got his records pulled up here in his 6 years at Missouri, including the current season that we're in. 5-5 in year 1, 6-7 year 2, 6-7 year 3. I remember going into the 23 season, I don't know if he was technically on the hot seat, but his name was being thrown around as possibly being on the hot seat because in today's era of college football, you get about 3 years. That's about it nowadays. And they expect you to compete even at a place like Missouri. But then, boom, it caught fire. 11-2, 10-3. So you're telling me, and I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here, you're telling me that a guy who wins 11-10 games at Missouri couldn't take the next step up at Penn State? I mean, I know you're not looking for 11-10 wins.
James
you're looking
Franklin,
for national championship.
That wasn't good enough for James Franklin.
Yeah, but if you're doing it at Missouri, could you not take the step up at Penn State? Is that not the next level, the extra oomph that you need to win a title? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe so.
Well, that's why I say it's comparable to James Franklin, because he did, if you're winning at Vanderbilt, you can win at Penn State. That's the idea. You were 9-3 at Vanderbilt. You should be able to elevate at Penn State. And he did for the most part, but again, it was capped. Okay.
And then it stalled.
Exactly. Everything was maxed out. You were never going to break through the glass ceiling. Drinkwitz, here's what I'll say about Drinkwitz. I think he's a better I prefaced, he is a good coach, but I don't know that he gives you something radically or drastically different than James Franklin. You are going to get situations, again, where he gets out-coached. He has not proven that he can win big games. And again, that's for Kirby Smart and Ryan Day, where they're winning big games left and right. I get it. It's that select coaching group. It's a room of 3 to 5 people max. Okay. I understand what we're talking about here, but still he struggles. If it's a top 20, if it's a bare top 25 team, okay, he's probably going to get the win. But when it's been top 15, top 10, top 5, Drinkwitz is struggling, and I get it. It's Missouri. They are certainly far from a powerhouse. Drinkwitz, better X's and O's coach overall than James Franklin, but how is he as a CEO, a program manager? I would hope that he's able to build a complementary staff that keeps maybe some Penn State connected alumni. I think of some of the assistants that are on staff that have been great recruiters, because he has no connections in Pennsylvania. You will be able to get you will be able to get Missouri players from the transfer portal, which I think is a plus. That is great, but it's a Band-Aid, because eventually that's going to run out and you're not going to get everybody. But again, long term, I'm looking at this. Does Drinkwitz give you something drastically different that gets you closer to a national title? Probably not. It is safe to say probably not. So therefore, when we put it down as yes or no, it's one way or the other, it's a no for me. Okay?
Wow.
He will get you more of the same of 10-2. Maybe you break through, you get 11-1, but I don't think Penn State runs the Big Ten with him as a head coach.
Do you have an early feeling on the fan base, Zach, on what they would think if it was Eli Drinkwitz, if he was hired tomorrow, right? And by the way, I just want to make this statement too, and then I want to get your thoughts on that. What a wild world that we're living in. And I think kind of crooked, to be honest with you, that we're talking about a powerhouse like Penn State that's having to go and hire a coach who's not in the college football playoff. You're having to go and in today's era hire a failed, and I put that in quotations, failed coach, because if you're not in the playoff, you're out of the playoff, right? But because of the calendar and how screwed up it is, you're having to go get a coach who underperformed this year just to hope that he can overperform at your school. That seems broken to me, but tell me what the early consensus is on the Penn State fans in terms of if Eli Drinkwitz were to be hired tomorrow.
Again, it's split. Go make the hire. Go make the move. This is good. You're basically getting an even split of all 3 categories that I've kind of laid out here. There are people that say that, yes, this is the hire that I've wanted all along. You get people that are middle of the road that, well, like me, that say, hey, this was framed as we want to win titles. It doesn't it's a good hire, but does it get us closer to that bar? It doesn't. And then you get people that say, no, absolutely not. I want somebody else. I want John Gruden, stuff like that. They either, yes, it's not, you do have more people that are saying like, it's okay. I'm willing to go with him. But again, what upside does he offer? That's the thing. I don't know that Drinkwitz, because you need upside to win titles. Because then you'd stay with James Franklin. Again, this hire was supposed to be about doing something that was different from James Franklin. What does this hire do that is different than hypothetical hire that is different than James Franklin? Jeff Brohm gives you something different. Brian Hartline gives you something different. I think even Alex Golish would give you something different because he's just such an offensive guru that, and he's been, I know, group 5, group of 6. What has he proven there? Okay, but he still has more upside than Drinkwitz. Again, Mike Elko and Kalen DeBoer are for obvious reasons, but since they're unrealistic, out of those remaining candidates, I would put them all above Drinkwitz. Again, a good hire with the hope, but I don't want to rely on hope that he'll be magically elevated by Penn State. Again, there's more working against him in the first part of his hypothetical tenure than anything else. So it probably doesn't, if from Indiana's perspective, it probably doesn't scare you. We had this conversation where I would not like from your perspective, you're saying, I don't want Brian Hartline as Penn State's next head coach. You say you see Eli Drinkwitz and you're like, okay, good luck.
Yeah. I don't think it bothers me at all. Eli Drinkwitz at Happy Valley, not so much. Brian Hartline, though, like I mentioned, and you said too, yeah, that scares the crap out of me.
Yeah. Still to come in this crossover episode, we're going to talk about Indiana. Are they fraudulent? Do they not have a chance against Ohio State in that hypothetical Big Ten title matchup? We'll discuss that next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today. See parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts fast for a project? Well, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com. That is supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. Supplyhouse.com, real people, real service.
After a mediocre performance against Penn State, is Indiana fraudulent? People outside of Bloomington, Zach, are saying they are. I'm a little worried about the Hoosiers, but you have a better perspective than anybody since Penn State's the one that almost pulled off the upset. Is Indiana a fraud, or was this just a good game by the Nittany Lions?
I don't think Indiana's fraudulent. I still think Penn State was, I like what, guys like Josh Pate said about it. That at Penn State, they look like a 3-6 team, but they're not actually a 3-6 team. Sure. On paper, they are 3-6, but that's still a team that's loaded with plenty of NFL talent. There's a lot to prove. Clearly, interim head coach Terry Smith has done enough to keep these guys relatively motivated. And that's a road game, right? For Indiana. So I think Indiana is kind of cautiously, subconsciously looking ahead. Right, that they just expect, we're going to get into the Big Ten championship. We're going to play Ohio State. And I don't think, I think Kurt Signetti and this team are a little more disciplined than that. But I got to imagine again, subconsciously, you're thinking that, hey, we have smooth sailing from here. We're at the easy part of the schedule finally. You turn your back for a moment. You let your foot off the gas. And that's where these upset-minded teams will get you. So I commend Indiana. I think it's a lot more respectable that they still came out of there with a win. Obviously, I'd be saying, I would be definitely trying to get you with, you lost to this Penn State team, right? But
you would, yeah.
But at the end of the day, the coaching down the stretch, Fernando Mendoza, ice in his veins, multiple. I mean, it did take Indiana a couple miracle plays to get this game, but they still were able to march down the field. Again, Penn State's defense has been walked down the football field too many times this season, whether it's Iowa, Northwestern, Oregon, or Indiana, to have these heartbreaking kinds of losses. So it's exhausting over here. Are all the red flags going up about Indiana for me? No, I don't think so. You can have a lackluster performance. I still think they're going to give Ohio State a game, but I certainly favor the Buckeyes. Let's put it that way. I think that will still be a competitive game one way or another. I don't think that's a 21-point game that people are starting to make this out to be.
Yeah, I've looked for an updated spread on that potential Big Ten championship game. It came out at 3.5 a week or so ago, but I'm sure that the hypothetical number has jumped since Indiana's lackluster performance against Penn State. And look, here's the thing, right? Every good team has a game or two like this during the season, unless it's that LSU team that just rolled through teams in 2019, or even some Ohio State teams we've seen in the past. It's very few and far between that a team just dominates start to finish. And this was Indiana's second real close matchup. You had the Iowa game on the road and the Penn State game on the road. But the Oregon game was close, but it never truly felt like this was going the wrong direction, at least against Oregon. Even with the pick six, you still felt like Indiana had a really good shot. The Iowa game was sketchy, but Indiana pulled it off. And the Penn State game was scary too, because it was all on Penn State. The momentum was with the Nittany Lions. And what would you say, a 75-80% full Beaver Stadium? I mean, impressed.
That was a solid crowd. That was a loud crowd.
Yeah. It was.
Was it the same kind of energy that it was with Oregon in the whiteout, or just another type of high stakes home game? Honestly, but it wasn't that far off. It wasn't a whiteout game for sure, but it was certainly, like, hey, this is a legitimate opponent. People were there for number 2 Indiana. This was a noon kickoff, so people were trying to hammer the crowd, saying that, look at how many the fans are frauds. They're fair weather. They don't even want to show up. And then everyone started to file in. The student section, in the blink of an eye, filled in very quickly. And that crowd was loud down the stretch. They gave ovations for interim head coach Terry Smith. So the Penn State fans are the disconnect was between Penn State fans and James Franklin, not this Penn State football team and the players, because the players were trying to hype up the crowd. The crowd was responding accordingly. But I know that everybody is exhausted after one heartbreaking loss after another. I mean, they're up to how many one-score buzzer beater losses like this? I'll also add that Penn State is progressive, right? It's a new system in place, new quarterback, and then against a top 5 Iowa defense on the road, number 1 defense against Ohio State on the road. And Penn State's just starting to settle in. They also they had a bye week in there as well to start to figure things out. Again, Ohio State's Ohio State, but this Penn State team, not that it matters, but they are actually getting better. They're correcting their mistakes. They are quietly improving, and you saw that against Indiana.
Yeah, and to the crowd point again, that's what I was going to say, was giving credit to the Penn State crowd and to Grunkemeyer, to that Penn State team for fighting and the crowd supporting the way that they did. But Indiana still finding a way to get it done. Did it take Fernando Mendoza's Heisman moment to do it? Yeah, probably. Did it take Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt, but Omar Cooper with one of the greatest catches we've ever seen? Yeah, it absolutely did. And guys like E.J. Williams and those types of guys stepping up. Riley Nowakowski, the tight end. I mean, all these guys making plays for Indiana to come back and win this? Yeah, but this is the Big Ten. This is P4 football. It's not supposed to be 40 and 50-point blowouts every single week. And if that Penn State team had been a top 5 team like we thought they were supposed to, they very easily could have won that game, but Indiana found a way to get it done. So I know there's a lot of people saying, Penn State gave them a run for their money. Maybe Indiana's not as good as we think they are. I still think the Hoosiers are one of the best teams in college football, but I am concerned about how they compete with Ohio State right now. I'll just be honest.
I just think that Penn State's not as bad as everyone might make them out to be.
People forget Penn State's got talent, dude. That's what I was trying to tell people. Yeah, they're all over the place.
And again, you're getting a former top 10 quarterback recruit that is just quietly getting better. Not everybody's going to pay attention to that. Again, I see that going to practice. I see that watching every single play of every single game because I have to.
Yeah.
It is my job. But I see the tangible progress of an Ethan Grunkemeyer, a former top 10 quarterback who I'm not opposed to being Penn State's starter next year. Again, given the situation, depending on the coaching staff. But if you say, hey, we're going to go with year 3 Ethan Grunkemeyer as our guy, okay, I'm not going to bat an eye at that. I am totally fine with Grunk because I see the upside. I see things that honestly Drew Aller didn't even have. Comfortability in the pocket. You saw it. Who's this? That you probably sat back and said, hey, this guy looks better than Aller at times. That's kind of the conversation we're having now, is that Grunk just looks calm, cool, and collected. Like he's got nothing to lose. Yeah. And it's starting again. It's just you caught Penn State at a turning point where it just started to come together. The changes again. This has been a 1 month thing since James Franklin's been fired. All the different playbook changes, all of the different route concepts, the different personnel groupings. That takes time. So now you're catching Penn State when they get a wave of momentum with these changes finally starting to click. So Penn State's just better than they're advertised. Again, I think Ohio State is the clear-cut favorite, but I am not here to say that Indiana is going to get blown out in Indianapolis in a few weeks. I don't think that at all. I still think that's a close game where Kurt Signetti and Ryan Day, I am eager for that chess match.
Well, while we're talking Penn State and Indiana, both are in action this weekend. We talk about those two teams and all the other Big Ten teams going on as we make our Week 12 picks right after this here on this Locked On Crossover.
And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot and an even bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And that can be used on anything. NFL, college football. Lines are available for Penn State versus Michigan State. The Nittany Lions are favored by 7.5 points, minus 295 on the money line, plus 240 if you're thinking Michigan State for the upset. The total is set at 50.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel. Remember, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, final segment on this Locked On Crossover. He is Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. And the way we end this show every single week is making our picks around the Big Ten. And here we are in Week 12. We're already over a week into the month of November, and some interesting games on the docket this week. A much fuller slate than what we've had the past couple of weeks, Zach. So let's run through these really quickly. A Friday night game as Minnesota hops on a plane and heads out to Eugene to take on the Ducks, who are off a scary but good win against Iowa. Oregon favored by over 3 touchdowns. Is there any way PJ Fleck could pull off an upset here?
See, now there might be a little bit of rain. This is a letdown spot, right? You know, Oregon's going up from, that was an intense Iowa crowd. I think Iowa gave them everything that they could handle. I like that game a lot. I enjoyed watching that one. So I see that as a potential letdown spot for Oregon, but Minnesota's just not that good. Oregon should have no issues. I just don't know how Minnesota scores. This could be something like a 31-35 to nothing shutout. Oregon very well might shut out Minnesota.
Yeah, I like this as a get-right game for Oregon. I don't think I'm touching 24 points, if that's what it is by the time this thing kicks off. It is, as us talking about it right now. But, yeah, I like Oregon in a very big get-right game here on a Friday night. Lots of games on Saturday, though. We start with my Indiana Hoosiers as they host Wisconsin for the last home game of the year and probably the last one of the season in general, not just the regular season, but Indiana, at least right now, not on pace to be hosting a college football playoff game. They should be a top 4 seed, so they get the first round bye, which is just fantastic to think about. So should be the final home game of the season. Wisconsin comes to town. They're hot. Don't let Wisconsin get hot. They're on their first Big Ten win of the season. I'm not touching Indiana by almost 30 points in this one, but I do like Indiana to win. Trying to get healthy here. Would love for this to be out of hand for Indiana's favor by halfway through the third quarter. Pull Fernando Mendoza, pull some of those offensive linemen, trying to get those guys healthy, including Drew Evans this week, and maybe some of your defenders as well, and Elijah Surratt. I like Indiana to win going away and trying to pull some of those starters by the fourth quarter, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, they put the clamps on a Washington offense that just, and you know, Roman, I saw that live stream of his. So, hey, I can relate, brutal. Man. Just disappointing losses that you're not expecting. So I know how it feels from the Penn State side of things. But yeah, that's a lot of points for a Wisconsin team that they have certainty. Luke Fickell's coming back. You have some optimism for the future. I think that's what Wisconsin is going off of here. That there's no what if. They at least have something to bank on for the future. So I like a Wisconsin team that's going to be competitive down the stretch. 30 points is too much for me. Could this be a 3-score game? Yes, but Wisconsin within 30 or within 28, if this line continues to move, absolutely, but they're not going to score. It's going to be about holding Indiana's offense relatively in check. But yeah, Indiana should be able to win by multiple scores, but I will take Wisconsin to cover.
I do have to admit that my preseason hot take was incorrect. I have been on the hill since the summer that Luke Fickell would not be coaching in this game for Wisconsin, but for whatever reason, they decided to extend him. They just don't want to pay him. They don't want to pay him to leave, and
they don't want to get in this coach. They don't want to get in the coaching carousel.
No, I don't blame them. I don't blame him. So I was wrong. Unfortunately, I was wrong. But for Indiana's sake, it's okay because they're going to win anyway. Yes. Also going on at the same time on Saturday, Michigan is a top 25 team. They head to Wrigley Field. That's right, in Chicago to take on a nasty Northwestern team. I know their record's not good, but they are just a down and dirty, in a good way, team that will rock fight you for 4 quarters. Michigan or Northwestern here, Zach, in a game that could be first 1 to 10.
Yeah, right. Well, in Northwestern's case, I mean, Michigan's a scrappy team, right? That's a run-first team. Seems to be a run-only team since they don't trust their freshman prodigy quarterback Bryce Underwood to throw the football. But crazy. Again, freshmen, younger players, underclassmen get better with that bye week. So Michigan having that bye, I think is going to help them a lot. So with Michigan coming off of the bye, they should have no issues with Northwestern. Just doesn't have upside. They can't. If Michigan gets ahead, they're going to continue to play with the lead. There's no way for Northwestern to come back. So I think 11.5 points is light. I could see this being a 2-3 touchdown type of game for the Wolverines. Wow. See, I have Northwestern to cover. If this is a double-digit spread by kickoff, I like Northwestern to keep it close because they both play the same style of football. Okay. I just think Michigan plays it better. I agree, and I think Michigan wins. I am interested to see what that crowd looks like at Wrigley Field. And then probably in terms of rankings and things, the highlight of Big Ten football this week is Iowa and USC. Basically a top 25 matchup. It's out in the Memorial Coliseum. It's in Los Angeles. Can Iowa come back off an emotional loss going across the country and take on the high-powered offense of the USC Trojans? I don't think they can. I like USC here. I like USC to win and cover by about a touchdown. Hey, USC is fighting for a college football playoff spot right there. Yep. They are right there. One loss in conference, right? So they have a chance to maybe go after a Big Ten championship appearance if Indiana is not too careful, right? So they got that. So, but USC has something to play for here, whether it's an appearance in a Big Ten championship. Iowa really outside looking in. So, and again, that's a letdown spot for them too, to lose like that to Oregon, to get walked down the field and you lose at home. Again, I can relate as the Penn State podcast host. I saw it too. So, and that follow-up game, when you have to fly across the country like that, does not do you any favors. Give me USC to win comfortably, cover that spread. And speaking of your Nittany Lions, they head up to East Lansing this weekend. Same time at 3:30 kick. Sure. Yeah. 2 teams. Land-grant trophy. Well, Land-grant trophy. Yeah, sure. Something has to give here, Zach Seyko, because one team in this game will pick up their first Big Ten win of the season. Is it Penn State or is it Michigan State? Battle of the States, baby, where Penn State is favored by about a touchdown as we look at it right now. Give us your analysis, my friend. Yeah, and I've been talking about it already with Matt Sheehan. He's the host of Locked On Spartans, so we already
Love
kind of
that
have a
guy.
good idea of this game. Yeah, oh, he's a great host, great host. This is a game where I think Penn State's offense is going to explode. Right? They are. I think at a
Okay.
minimum they're going to get 30 points in this game. I can guarantee you at least 30 points for Penn State, but I do worry
Wow.
again. Another demoralizing loss where you should have won, you should have upset Indiana again, coulda, shoulda, woulda, but you didn't. Those stack up. So how much mental fortitude does Penn State have? I think they win in a shootout type of game because I think Michigan State is going to try to maximize Penn State's weaknesses. So we're gonna have to edit this out because my cat's annoying. So, all right. So I think that Michigan State will be able to capitalize on those Penn State weaknesses defensively. Mobile quarterback, right? Are they going to go with Aiden Childs? I know that he got benched, but give me Penn State to win by getting into the 30s. But Michigan State, they can make this a ball game. I will say that 7.5 is airtight. 31-24, Penn State.
Okay. I will take Penn State too. If they can show up with the same intensity and physicality that they did a week ago, they'll bully that Michigan State team. And I think Penn State gets it done. The last 3 games on the schedule all have double-digit favorites. So we'll pick these quickly. Illinois hosting Maryland. Any chance that Maryland can walk into Champaign and get it done? Illinois' season has kind of gone off the rails. They're still 6-3, but only 500 in Big Ten play. So Illinois, Maryland. Can Washington bounce back against a winless Purdue team? And I won't make you pick the Buckeyes over UCLA. So
No, I mean hey, we go on the record with these, and we've been pretty sharp. Give me
Yeah.
Maryland because that's a young and up and coming team. Again, they just have a
Wow.
lot. They just have a lot of underclassmen that have star power. I'm not saying that they're stars, they're elite, but they have upside with them long term. Maryland covers against an Illinois team again that had loftier expectations and will not be missing. So I would say that Maryland has more to play for because their goals are relative, right? So
Sure.
Maryland covers. Washington might be in a letdown spot here. Again, Purdue is nothing to. I just like. How about points? Give me points. Even though Purdue's going to travel, just neither of those teams play good defense, and Washington needs a get right game after Wisconsin held them in check offensively. So points, but I will side with Purdue since that's just a letdown spot overall. And then UCLA, I'm not sure the hot streak, everything, the lightning's been let out of the bottle. UCLA is not. Everybody's caught on to their tricks. Penn State, unfortunately, didn't have the luxury of all that, but Ohio State should win comfortably at home. That is a lofty spread, though, so this is why we do this, right? Because Ohio State didn't cover against Purdue. I could see a similar situation where 31 points is just a lot, but still winning by 4 touchdowns when the season's right in front of you. Kind of the same thing. Rest your starters, win the game comfortably, make a statement. But, what's the difference between a 24-point victory and a 31-point victory in the minds of Ohio State?
Yeah, I think it's because their 3rd and 4th string guys are better than anything that UCLA could put on the field. So I like Ohio State to win. I like them to cover 31.5. Why? Night game at the shoe. Why not? They'll show off and they'll show out. I like Washington to cover 16, 17 points here. I just think they need a breakout game. I've been waiting for it for a Washington offense that honestly has disappointed me this year. They've gone up against some good defenses, but they have disappointed me with the playmakers that they have. And then I like your Maryland pick. I like your Maryland to cover pick. I'll take Illinois to win at home, but I like Maryland to cover on the road if it's still around 2 touchdowns or even a little bit more. So those are our Week 12 picks around the Big Ten. We do this every single week, highlighting the biggest news stories around the conference, making our picks, and also giving you a little insight on the Indiana Hoosiers and the Nittany Lions as well. I'm Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Zach Seyko, host of Locked On Nittany Lions. Be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channels. However you found us, we want you to be a part of our daily shows talking all things Hoosiers and Nittany Lions. And if you're listening on audio, or if you want to listen on audio, you can find us there too. Spotify, Amazon, Apple. Follow us, turn on those notifications because we post shows every single day. We'll do this again next week, Mr. Seyko. And for all of our Nittany Lions and Hoosiers fans, we appreciate you. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.